All right. Welcome to another exciting episode of MovieByte podcast. I am your host, Ruben, and with me, my brother in arms, The Russian. How you doing today, bro?
Hello, everybody. I'm doing great, Ruben. How are you?
All good, man. All good. I'm excited for this week's movie. I really am.
I'm. It's been a pleasure to rewatching it. A few things I missed on the first few goes, but I haven't seen it like I want to say I don't want to say a decade, but it's been a long time since I seen this movie, and it was great that you brought it up, and I always enjoyed it. I always felt that this is a slightly better performance from the director and slightly better overall movie than the one which is praised by many,
Yep.
and that's the Shawshank Redemption, which is also adapted from the Stephen King's play,
Yep.
Stephen King's book, and was turned into the movie in 1994.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about the Green Mile, which is also adaptation from Stephen King, which from everything I read online is his favorite adaptation of his work.
Yep. And
Uh,
he's very picky with his work. Because no, obviously he has most of his adaptations are not very fair to the book. And the greatest example is The Shining. The Shining is not a good adaptation versus what the book is. And that's why he's never been fond of movie adaptation off his book. He signs off of them. He lets directors do what they need to do. But like you said, The Green Mile to date is his favorite adaptation of all the novels that he has written that have been adapted to movies. This the novel was originally released in a series of 6 books, like 6 short novels, and then they re-released it as one whole book under the title The Green Mile. But the 6 novels were divided like in kind of like in different chapters, like first introducing the characters of like Tom Hanks, that's played by Tom Hanks, and John Coffey, and then the mouse has his own book and everything. The death of Edward Delacroix is also a separate book that ties into that, but then they just re-released into one single book by the time this movie was in production, so that it could boost up sales and people could like read it before the movie came out.
Wait, you're gonna tell me that actually the writers can finish their books? They don't just write like two, three of them, make a TV series about it, and then just forgot completely about writing them?
Yeah, so that's what good writers do.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
all right. But
good
the
writers that are actually writers and they don't want to like profit out of their shows and they
right,
just profit out of the book sales.
go out and
Yes.
have a party for 10 years and don't pick up the pen
Yeah,
and
and to
let the
this
bad
day,
writers to finish their work.
yeah, and to this day you have fans that are still waiting for your long-awaited book that
I
most
don't think
likely
I don't think we're gonna get it.
I don't think so either.
The original ending.
Yeah.
Um,
And for those who are wondering who we're talking about,
they
obviously we're talking
know.
about
Everybody knows.
Mr. George R. Martin, the writer and creator of the Game of Thrones series. And he has written 5 books and he has promised a lot of people the 6th book will finish everything and will be completely different from the show. And that was announced probably like 5 years ago.
But anyway, back to the
Anyways, back to the Green Mile.
good writers, good directors, and good adaptations. Because the Frank Darabont, he adapted the book
Yeah.
and he wrote the screenplay. And just the same way he did with Shawshank Redemption, it was his project. I believe the original Shawshank Redemption script, he purchased the rights for $5,000, and he was actually offered $3 million to get somebody to direct it, and I'm glad he didn't. Like that movie is on a galaxy of its own, and it's fantastic. It's such a lovely story. But from that, he kind of trampoline into the next project, which was Green Mile, which stars Tom Hanks, like you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, Tom Hanks was also offered the role in Shawshank Redemption, which he politely declined
Yeah.
because at the time he was filming his probably one of the best works,
That is correct.
Forrest Gump.
Yeah. Forrest Gump.
Um, and I found in there's two different sources. He either was gonna play the main role or he was playing the role of Red. of Morgan Freeman, which I don't see him doing that. Maybe playing the role of Andy, I can buy that. I don't see anybody else in the role of Red besides
Yeah.
Morgan Freeman. Like that's just
No, I agree. Speaking of fun fact with Frank Darabont, he doesn't have that much as far as director credits go. Like Shawshank Redemption was his first big movie, and he went to get nominated for like best writing, and it was nominated for best picture and everything. And then he has the Green Mile that he followed up 5 years later, and after that he has the Majestic that was starring Jim Carrey.
right? Yeah,
Yep,
I never
very good
seen
movie.
that.
It's a
Have you
very good
seen?
movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Okay, all right. I'll put it
It's
on the
kind of
list.
like in the vein of the Truman Show and that like dramedy type of
Yep.
style. And then he did The Mist, which was released in 2007. And after that, he's just done a couple of episodes for TV shows, including The Walking Dead. He did the pilot
I
episode for The
thought he
Walking
was
Dead.
like a part of the creator of The Walking Dead.
He is.
There
He's
was
like an
there was
executive producer.
there was multiple people who
Yeah.
like kept passing on to like be in charge of the show. But
I'm talking about more about his as a director credit. He
right.
only has 4 major films under his belt. He's
Right.
more of a writer than a director.
And you can like I can tell from watching from my obviously like the poor man's opinion that Shawshank Redemption, it's a good movie, but it's not like the Fincher movie. It's not spectacular visually. It's not like mind blowing from Christopher Nolan's perspective, like how he directs movies. Yeah. Same with Green Mile. It's very basic, but it works. Sometimes you don't have to go out of your lengths and have like complicated shots, and just kind of like have this story. And to me, like the way that I was trying to describe it to myself, like what is this movie? I think the best way I can come up with to give anybody like what is this movie, like which genre it falls on, it's a fairy tale for grown-ups. It does not have like it sci-fi element. It doesn't have like a lot of horror, which is kind of the thing that Stephen King is known for, like mainly besides. Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna name the few, but like besides like the Dark Tower and the Green Mile, everything else kind of has.
I agree with you.
Like,
I'm a big Stephen
King
fan, and I've read majority of some of his most popular works, and he's very known for like horror. And for him to tackle like this type of story, it's a little bit different. Like you said, it's like a fairy tale. It has elements of fantasy, it has elements of drama, a crime, right? It shows you a reality of during the Great Depression and how inmates were treated in death row, right? And during this and the death row cell as well.
Right, and that's where the movie comes. The name comes from, the Green Mile. It's usually like they call it the last mile when the inmates who are set for execution have to like walk for the last time. Yeah. They call it the last mile. But since in this case the floor of the walk was the hallway was painted green, so that's what the title came from, as being called the Green Mile. Few things just kind of like, since we're on a subject of the timepiece. Originally it was set in 1932, but the director changed it to 1935 because he wanted to include that kind of
the little black and white movie,
right, top hat. So like that's kind of the movie that at the end. Okay, we go spoilers alert. If you have not seen Green Mile, stop this podcast and
hit pause and watch it, and then come back.
Watch the movie, come back. If you don't care about spoilers and just want to stay with us and enjoy the show, here we go. So before his execution, our main character, who's played by wonderful Michael Clarke Duncan, his name is John Coffey, just like a drink but spelled differently.
Yeah,
that's what he kind of repeats in through entire of the movie. He is he's asked what he wants to do as his last kind of thing, and he says, well, for the meal I want this, that, and this, but as my last wish, I never seen the movie or film, so I would like to see first something on a big screen. And they show him the top hat, which kind of brings us to the beginning of the story, where the Tom Hanks character who's already in his like very late age. At that point, he's 108 years old, and he sees this movie in his nursing home, and it's kind of like makes the flashback of his life story, and that's what we as viewers kind of experience through his storytelling, is what happened to him as when he was the young. I guess he's like he's not the warden, but what was his title?
He is a
prison
supervisor.
Prison guard supervisor for the
cell block supervisor.
Cell block, and
that's
his
role. And
cell block supervisor, and his cell block was responsible for the execution of the inmates. Unfortunately, a few things about that time period does not work as well, is because the movie is set in Louisiana, and in Louisiana as a state, they did not start using electric chairs till 1940. So since the movie is set in 1935, there's no use of that. And also the straight jackets that are shown in few episodes, they have like a buckles on them, and the United States did not use buckles up until 1980 for straight jackets. They just placed people, and just throw them. I did not rewatch the Cuckoo's Nest and see what they used for straight jackets.
Yeah, I mean, at the end, there's no such thing as a perfect movie.
No, that's not. No. Like, I'm just like, hey, we're gonna be, since this movie does not have much that I can, grab my teeth and pick it apart. I need to throw some light things out there.
So you were mentioning Michael Clarke Duncan. His first big role came with Armageddon with Bruce Willis. In fact, he got the role of John Coffey because Bruce Willis recommended him to Frank Darabont for the role. Because originally they were eyeing, and this is funny, they were eyeing Shaquille O'Neal to play really? John Coffey. Yeah. The reason why, obviously, John Coffey in the book is described as a very tall black man, right? And they needed to have someone that was tall. But you can make someone tall, but at the end of the day, you need someone to actually be tall, right? You can't always pull off camera angles, which in this movie they do.
They did because he's 6'5", if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And the guy who actually plays the warden, his name is
James Cromwell.
James Cromwell is 6'6", and the guy who's playing Brutal Howell or Brutus,
David Morse
is 6'4".
Yep.
So
they had to create camera angles. They made the bed smaller to make him look bigger on the cell. So back to Clarke Duncan. So this movie was the movie that launched him to like stardom. Green Mile was. He got nominated for Best Supporting Actor for this role. And he unfortunately passed away in 2012 after respiratory failure. He died very young, and he left behind a number of films from Armageddon, Sin City, Green Mile, Whole 9 Yards, Planet of the Apes. He after the Green Mile, he started making movies. He was the Kingpin in Daredevil, the Ben Affleck's Daredevil, right?
You have a soft spot for?
It's a guilty pleasure. It is
Armageddon right here, bro. Like I love that movie.
But seeing Michael Clarke Duncan play this role, it's so different from all the other roles that he's always been casted on, and it was magnificent. Like, obviously, it didn't require much, but he played it that you feel such an empathy for this character, even though like beginning of the movie, you're just assuming that he did those crimes based on what they're feeding you in the movie, and you're just going along with the story. But at the same time, you're seeing what happens in the movie, all the events that transpire. You discover that he has a supernatural ability where he can take somebody's illness and make them better by taking it away. And you're starting to feel like, wait a minute, like how can someone like this, so innocent, so pure, commit those horrendous crimes that are described in the movie, right? And he plays it with such a simplicity and such an innocence that that's why he got nominated. He didn't win, but he got nominated, and that was enough recognition for him, because this is his best role. This was his best role, sorry. And I don't think anybody else could have played John Coffey the way he played it.
No, I don't picture anybody in that role. Same with, if we're talking about the performances, I think if you want to place the first place going to the Michael Clarke Duncan, I think my boy Sam Rockwell takes the
Oh, Wild Bill
second
Wharton.
trophy.
Oh, yeah.
Like him playing as that crazy psychopath.
And you know what's funny? This, like, Sam Rockwell wasn't a top-notch. He wasn't known for being a top-notch actor when this movie got released.
He still till this day he doesn't. I don't think
He's very
he's
underrated. I will agree with you.
Like,
He's a very underrated actor.
The movies and the performances he puts under his belt, every movie like is has something to give, right? And it haven't been like one mega movie like, and I want to just rephrase like something to Joker, like, right? Nobody cared about Joaquin Phoenix like before Joker. Like after the Joker blew up, everybody's like, oh yeah, he's so good in that this. But before Joker,
really, like you're not even like Gladiator.
No, I'm saying me and you, of course. But,
okay,
but a lot of people, if you mention Gladiator,
okay, I got you. A lot of people will say Russell Crowe. I get. I
me and you would debate for that. Master is a great movie till the day I die. But you know,
no,
like
it's not.
Exactly. So your point taken. But that with Sam Rockwell, I still waiting. And even though Three Billboards Outside Edinburgh, like it put him on the map, it gave him the Oscar, but it's still not his. He was a supporting role. So,
yeah, and I'm pulling up his filmography right now, and I gotta say that Green Mile was his first noticeable role, followed by Galaxy Quest, which was released the same year.
Right, and he's great in Galaxy Quest, and he plays completely different character.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then the Dangerous, what is that? Confessions of a
Dangerous Mind.
Yeah. Like, if you have not seen it, like check that out. Like, that movie is fantastic.
That and Matchstick Men with Nicolas Cage.
Dude, that movie we're gonna have to talk about that.
Yeah, that's a good movie
when we get to the Nicolas Cage. But so yeah,
but back to Wild Bill Wharton,
because we will spiral into this rabbit hole. So I think his casting is phenomenal, and Josh Brolin was actually the first runner for the role, but Sam Rockwell just nailed his like
he does
addition, and then obviously he got the role for that.
And this is the thing about this movie, like you said earlier, it doesn't have that much for you to grab on, but just the story and the characters are the key to this movie. And not just the characters, is the people that play them. It makes you connect to them. Yep. So we mentioned Michael Clarke Duncan, we mentioned Sam Rockwell, but what about Doug Hutchinson, who plays Percy Wetmore?
Dude, you cannot not hate him. Like,
exactly.
The way that he acts, the way that he does things, it's so like evilish, but it's so childish. So that's my only like struggle as a grown. Like at first, when I watched that movie, first 20 years ago, I was like, yeah, this motherfucker deserves everything he got. Rewatching it these days, I was like, damn, he got a bad end of the stick. In reality, bro, all he did, I mean, he killed the mice, which came back to life. Like he put through a very painful death another inmate.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bad thing. I mean, you don't want to see people suffer, but then again, we don't know what the Dale did, so you can't really justify that as the punishment.
Yeah,
the crime which deserves that kind of punishment, because his punishment was very severe. So to me, it's kind of a bittersweet subject when it comes down to his.
And I agree with you. He was a child. He was like they tell you in the movie, the character Percy Whitmore has that job because his aunt is
governor's wife,
goddaughter, or something like that.
Yeah.
She has a very high position in the state of Louisiana, and if he cries to her, she makes things happen, right? And they mentioned that throughout the movie, like the reason why he's here, because he has he goes crying to his aunt. Like it's mentioned multiple times.
It also the thing that he's there and it's the Tom Hanks character like speaks to the warden about it. Is like, I think his only reason for being here is just to like witness the
somebody die.
Execution. Yeah. Like being close up. And in the book, he's supposed to be 21 years old. The actor who played him, you mentioned, he actually was 39, and he lied to the director, saying like, "I'm in my early 30s."
Yeah.
But watching it now, I couldn't picture anybody doing
yeah.
doing
And
it better at all.
again, I'm putting up his filmography. He wasn't that much known until like probably The Green Mile, and I'm gonna look just to make sure I'm correct.
Yeah, and afterwards, I did not see him like in a lot of.
No, look, apparently he was in Con Air. He plays Donald in Con Air. I have to rewatch that movie,
Well,
and he was in Time to Kill. Also,
yeah, probably small parts because.
yeah. But other than that, like obviously Green Mile is probably the most noticeable character that he's played, and then after that, he went on to play the character of Jigsaw in the reboot of Punisher Warzone, which was a flop.
Don't say it to the other Alex.
Yeah.
He loves it. That's his guilty pleasure.
But other than that, he's done like a lot of TV appearances, episodes like Lost and other shows like that. But The Green Mile is probably his most noticeable work.
And that's the thing. Like these characters, they give the screenplay and the time on screen gives them time to be developed and gives the audience to get the feeling and make their own decisions without like director and script pushing for it, right? Because you at the end of the day, you decide, is this guy good, is this guy bad, or was his decisions justified, or was his actions like can they be justified? Mm-hmm. And in a movie which runs 3 hours and 8 minutes, let's the rundown.
And it doesn't feel like a 3-hour movie if you're watching it.
Well, it did felt for me, but anyway, they don't make them that long anymore unless you Marvel, right? And even like the latest Marvel, I don't think it clocked at 3 hours. It was like 2 hours and 39 minutes, something like that. The Endgame.
Endgame? No, Endgame's 3 hours and 2 minutes long.
Is it? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but besides that, I think in the past 20 years, you cannot name the movie which got the green light from the studio for that period. For that length, because obviously the studios, they want to chop and cut, and the latest project which been blown out of proportions.
I don't want to throw you under the bus, but I can name a few.
Okay, I mean, you can throw me under the bus. Let's go. What 3 hour?
Obviously, you got Titanic, 1997.
I'm saying in the last 20 years.
Well, it's been what?
1997, right?
So so before 2017.
Gotcha. That's what I'm saying.
So
my point being,
Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor runs 3 hours.
Pearl Harbor is a 3-hour movie.
Okay,
we got
that's
Return of the
2001.
King. Return of the King, 2003.
Okay. But that's
probably
specific.
That's right now what I'm thinking in my top of my head right now.
Okay, Michael Bay, he can make 6-hour movie and people will pay him to do it.
Yeah, but let's be fair. And like, then, Pearl Harbor is not his best movie.
It's not, but I'm saying I mean, for Michael Bay, to make a 3-hour movie or 2-hour movie, like it doesn't matter. He has leverage with studios. That's my point.
Yeah, pretty much. Pearl Harbor would have been a 2-hour movie if he would have just taken away that love story between.
You can't take away the love story from Pearl. That's the best part.
Look, it only worked once with James Cameron's Titanic, and that's it.
Beckinsale, you're gonna take her out of this? No, bro.
Like, no. Okay, yeah, okay. You get Kate Beckinsale, Ben Affleck, and then you have Josh Hartnett.
Well, Josh Hartnett was like on the uprise, so we needed to give him.
That went downhill. Time. But anyways, back to the Green Mile. We'll discuss Pearl Harbor in another day.
So my point being is, it's very hard to make a story which will last more than 2 hours, especially from an unknown director, and studios want to cut the time. They want to make the theater run as money grabbing as possible, because if you run a movie for 3 hours, you can only have like 6 showings a day, right? If you make a movie which lasts an hour and a half, right, you're making double that. Yeah. So, well, in technically speaking, but in 90s, yes, it was one of those things where doing the movie for like 3 hours, it did not seem that stretched apart, right? And it was a great time for movies to have that, I want to call it a soul of the movie, right? And I can name the few, like Legends of the Fall, like River Runs Through, like movies which had like that melodramatic kind of take on it, and it just showed the characters, and they showed their flaws, and they showed the mistakes that they make, and how those mistakes like kind of transform them as people without any kind of like superheroes involved and any kind of like stupid twists, and just kind of this is what we're showing. This is how life could be. Plus, in this storyline, that the one person has magical abilities, right? So yeah, that's my take on the movie itself, how it was made, how the characters acted, and uh, what I found incredible in this scenario was that I think like it's actually a movie about how people deal with power. Like each character in this script is given some kind of power, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, like our main character Paul Edgecombe, as I hope I'm saying
Edgecombe. Yeah.
Edgecombe, played by Tom Hanks. His power is like he executes people. Like that's his job. That's his title. Like he's given that, he chose that, but that's state decided to put these people to death, and he was given the authority or power to make that decision, come true. Then you have Michael Clarke Duncan, John Coffey character. His power is to take something which is bad out of you and kind of like throw it up in the air. Or in some scenarios that he did, he spit it into Percy's face, and then Percy went a little bit crazy, so he kind of inherited that bad. Percy, on the other hand, is given power of being related to somebody with connections, somebody with kind of like, here you are given this uh, white glove, and you can do whatever you want, and you're not going to be punished for your actions, right? Like that's kind of his power. And then obviously our main guy, who, well, Billy the kid, well, he is kind of, I don't know if it's a power, but he does whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Like for entire movie, he's a level of anarchy, which is kind of his, if you want to like, if I want to call it like a power of his character, is that he does not have any remorse, or he does not have any conscious or uh, whatever the reactions will be after his actions. Like that does not exist in his world. And that's what puts these kind of power struggles into perspective, and that's how these characters go around and change in some way, because after the last execution, Tom Hanks' character no longer wants to be in that position, right? uh, the Michael Clarke Duncan, the John Coffey, he doesn't want to be in this world anymore. He says at the end, it's like, don't worry, like I'm tired. Just you do what you gotta do, because he was like left with a choice. Hey, I can drive you somewhere. I can let you to be on the run, and that at least will save your life. But he says, no, I don't want to run anymore. Like I've seen so much ugliness in this world,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been in so much pain that I'm done carrying this power,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of like gonna pass it on to you in a small piece, but you're gonna have to pay the price. And the price of the Tom Hanks character is kind of like immortality.
Immortality. Yeah.
And obviously the consequences of Percy's power is being taken away, where it's reversed. His free will is no longer there, right? And so he executes Billy Kid, and that's Wild Bill, right? Sorry, I always mess up. You gotta keep in touch. Like you gotta follow what am I saying? You gotta be my director. It's like, hey, you're saying the wrong Wild Bill. So Wild Bill is being executed by whatever 5-6 bullets, which Percy fires out, being under the magical spell after John Coffey kind of blows that all the nastiness that he collected to heal Warden's wife into Percy's face. So that's kind of like your dynamical shift of one guy who never cared about things that he did gets executed, with the guy who kind of at that point does not care what he's doing, or not aware of what he's doing. All right.
So with everything you just said, there's a couple of lines in the movie that really like it hit me, and it's like the point of the story. And one is said by John Coffey, and he goes, he killed them with their love for each other. That's how it is every day all over the world.
That's
Okay.
deep.
And it just summarizes what he was going through, what he has seen. You know, he shares, and this is said in that point where he shows Tom Hanks the truth, all right, of who killed those two little girls, and then that's when they reveal in the movie that it was Wild Bill, and that's when he gives Tom Hanks like, hey, like, this is a piece. I'm gonna give you a piece of me, but you're gonna pay the consequences, like you just stated. And he says that line: he killed them with their love for each other. That's how it is every day all over the world. So we kill each other because we're fighting, we're killing for something that we all love. And that's how John Coffey sees the world in his eyes. And that's why, like you said, he's done. No, he's just gonna go through and accept his fate because he's done. Like he already witnessed too much. And at that point, what he witnesses the death of two innocent girls who the only thing they had in this world was the love for each other and that care for each other. Right. In fact, there's the flashback in that scene where they show Wild Bill when he's kidnapping them. He goes, "If you scream, I'll kill your sister. You love your sister? You do? So don't say a word." And then he goes back to the sister, and I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but he goes back to the sister and he goes, "Same with you. If you scream, I kill your sister."
That line is used in the first 30 seconds of the movie.
Yeah, it is.
That line is said like, "Hey, if you love your sister, don't scream," and that's kind of like sets up the movie. But yeah, I mean, if you want to make a grown man cry, like Green Mile is it. Like,
bro, it does. And there's another moment in the movie, and I found the lines that also hits me, and it's when Tom Hanks, who's playing Paul Edgecombe, goes, "On the day of my judgment, when I stand before God, he asked me why did I kill one of his true miracles. What am I going to say? That it was my job? My job?" And John Coffey responds, "You tell God the Father it was kindness you done. I know you're hurting and worrying. I can feel it in you, but you ought to quit it on now because I want it over and done. I do. I'm tired, bus, tired of being on the road, lonely as a sparrow in the rain, tired of never ever having me a buddy to be with or tell me where we's coming from, what, from, or going to, or why. Mostly, I am tired of people being ugly to each other. I'm tired of all the pain I feel here in the world every day. There's too much of it. It's like pieces of glass in my head all the time. Can you understand?" And Tom Hanks responds, "Yes, Jan, I think I can."
Yeah, and I mean the writing is great, and the beauty of that moment is when they take John to his execution. He looks in a crowded place where everybody's like obviously hating him because in their mind that's what he did. He killed those two girls, and he's like, "I feel the hate," and the David Moore's character, he looks at him and he says, "Do you feel like what we are feeling?" And he's like, "Yeah," and it's like, stick to that. Don't pay attention to what. There's always going to be haters in the world. You can't avoid them. You either ignore them or you ignore them. Like, I mean, it's obviously arguing with people who dislike you for one reason or whatever. It's like you're not changing their mind, and it's their flaw for thinking that something wrong with you, you know. But this movie, like, it strikes the chord. It really does,
especially that third act of the movie. You know, when John Coffey's about to get executed, because like the movie, in which what I enjoy about this movie a lot, and it's something that Frank Darabont does in most of his movies, because he also has this kind of element in Shawshank Redemption, is that even though you know it's going to be a drama and the ending, it's probably not what you're expecting, there's still moments of comedy in it.
Oh yeah.
Okay, it shows you like, hey, I'm giving you a story that is going to make you cry, but I'm gonna make you laugh at first. I don't want this to be a sad, soppy movie. I'm gonna make you cry. I'm gonna give you comedic elements that you can reflect and say, like, oh yeah, that's funny. If I wasn't that scenario, I'd probably react the same way. In this movie, that like it's the mouse, that interaction that they all have with the mouse, and they're trying to figure out where the mouse is coming. They empty out the cushion, the padded room, and the mouse is not there, right? And then Percy sees the mouse and he goes, I'm gonna get the mouse. And oh, we tried that. No. Just let him do Relax. It. And he empties out the padded room. And like you're it's funny, those scenarios like that, right? But then it hits you when you finally have gotten the belief to know, like, John Coffey is a good guy. He did not commit those murders. Like, he's a good guy. He's, look at him, he's trying, but at the end of the day, he still needs to serve his punishment, right? And there's another moment.
System, right?
Yeah, like it's a system.
It's a system. There's not. You can't go against the system.
And that's the thing that in the movie, when Tom Hanks' character is just laying down with his wife, and I can see this is after he finds out that John Coffey did not commit those murders. He's laying in the bed, and his wife's like, do you think it's going to make a difference if you tell Hal? Hal is the warden, right? And Tom Hanks, he's a realist. He's like, it's not. Like, it doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter that John Coffey saved the warden's wife from a brain tumor. They all have a job. They all have a function in this society that they need to go through with it. Like, it doesn't matter what I say. It's not going to change. And she goes, and this is what it kills me the most, but it's the reality. She goes, then don't tell him. Just keep it to yourself and move on.
And sometimes there are secrets that need to be kept, And
that's the thing, that this character, Paul Edgecombe, right, again, played by Tom Hanks, he carries with that secret for the rest of his life. He carries that burden, and that's his, like, is part of his punishment. You live forever knowing the truth, and that you couldn't do anything about it with that information. Like, it's gotta be tough that you have to live forever. I wouldn't want to be in that position of living forever, knowing that I carry a secret that big that I.
But that's the price he had to pay. Because he goes through life and all of his friends pass away. Yeah. And his wife passes away, and all is left is him and this Mr. Jenkins, which is the name of the mouse. And then, like, there was actually like subreddit dedicated to figure out how many years he has left, because he's 108 at this point of time when the story is told, and Mr. Jenkins is still alive. And obviously the span of life for a mouse is a little bit different than the span of life for men. So if Mr. Jenkins lived with him till this period of time, is still alive.
Mr. Jingles.
Mr. Jenkins.
Mr. Jingles.
Mr. Jingles. Thank you. Somebody
I got you.
We have some comedic elements in our podcast too. Yeah. Maybe not as funny, but they exist. Mr. Jingles. So and yeah, it's like it's so heartbreaking when they tell, like, Dale that his mouse is gonna go to the what is that place called? Mouse Circus?
Mouseville in
Mouseville,
Florida.
In Florida. And the Tom Hanks is like, it's next to the dog university. Like, it's obviously they tried to play off and
again, it's their jobs, and he mentions it in the movie. It's like, your job is to keep the prisoners calm.
Right. It's just they already, and they about to pay for their crime.
Exactly.
And
exactly, like you're saying, like, they're all there knowing that their time is coming. They all have a date of execution. They know their clock is ticking.
I still think in that stage you're delusional. I don't know. Like, I cannot put anybody in their mindset.
You literally have a date of death.
Right. Like, imagine walking that mile. Like, I can't.
Your head is probably somewhere else after that, because you're like, you know what? I know it's coming. I'm just going to live my life as much as I can and imagine things and be happy,
Right. Like, your last thought, it's your last thought. And that's it.
And this is
electricity
what like,
goes.
and I was watching this movie with my wife, and she brought up a couple of times like, do they ever tell you what the other inmates did? And they don't.
Well, it's not technically polite in
I
prison
know,
system
but it
from.
may in a movie sometimes a director may want to give you background on other characters, but they do it on purpose so you don't lose your focus on John Coffey and Tom Hanks' character, Paul Edgecombe.
Right.
And then obviously Wild Bill comes into the picture and then it ties you in, but you don't get to see Wild Bill until later in the movie.
Right.
Right?
And they tell why he is there. He's
exactly.
like he killed few people.
Yeah, and one of them was pregnant.
Shootout. Right.
Yeah.
So you already know. Okay, this guy is a fucking lunatic. He's a
yeah, exactly.
nightmare.
But you don't know why Edward Delacroix is in there. You don't know why the chief is in there. And maybe in the book they tell you that information. And most
you have not read the book.
I have not read The Green Mile.
Oh, come on.
If there's anything, I'm gonna read it. It's on my list. But if there's anything that Stephen King does really good in his book is that he provides detail. All right. That's why The Shining is a better book than what the movie is. Doctor Sleep is a better book than what the movie is. Pet Sematary is a better book than what the movie is, even though that are very close in
Have you read the
adaptations.
Shawshank Redemption?
So Shawshank Redemption is actually a short story.
Okay.
It's called Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank. The Shawshank Redemption, it's actually the movie title that they did it for like marketing reasons.
Right.
You're not gonna sell a movie called Rita Hayworth
Yeah.
and the Shawshank. People are not gonna go see that.
Nobody knows what that is.
But the Shawshank Redemption is actually a short story adapted to a 2-hour film. So there are elements that are just added for the movie, and I haven't read the short story, but I'm assuming it's more about the character's background.
Right.
Yeah.
And then besides this, what we else got from Stephen King? We got The Mist. We got the It. We got the Dark Tower, which
only made a movie, but hopefully the show, whenever it gets made, it works. But Misery with Kathy Bates and James Caan.
Oh, I forgot that's Stephen King.
That is Stephen King.
Yeah.
I think Dolores Claiborne is also a Stephen King movie.
But yeah, I Dreamcatcher. Which is another underrated gem.
I agree with you. That's an amazing film.
Amazing film. Horrible title. It doesn't tell you anything. The commercial was bad. You gotta go and prepare for the nightmare scenario if aliens attack. Like it's Independence Day on crack. Like you gotta be prepared for that movie to watch.
Children of the Corn. That's another Stephen King movie. That movie is pretty terrifying. Gerald's Game, which is a movie on Netflix. That's Stephen King movie.
Yeah, he has
He's probably one of the authors that has most of his work adapted.
Right, and we're not even including TV shows. There's
exactly
tens of TV shows based on his stuff. But that's like so much creativity coming out of one person. Like it's just mind blowing. Like all of these different stories you can come up and write, and you finish them. You don't let your audience hang in there to wait for you to finish the fucking book.
I believe every single Stephen King adaptation has been done after the book's been released. I don't think he's ever made a movie or a show, because even The Outsider, when it was released in 2019, the book came out in a year ahead. Because I actually read that book and I've stopped halfway on the show because it doesn't do any justice.
Yeah, we're not going to go into dismantling that garbage,
but again,
going back to
the Green Mile,
to this movie, if you've seen it a long time ago, I would give it a rewatch. Probably with age, we have different perspectives. As you said, like it has the elements of humor, it has the elements of drama. It's the relationship within people. It just how do you cope with when something is so good but it presented that it's done such a bad thing. Like those two things don't go together.
And look, this movie, It was nominated for Best Picture in 1999.
Bro, that was a tough year.
It was.
That was a tough
I just
year.
pulled it up and
oh
look,
my
the
god!
nominees.
You have American Beauty.
American Beauty.
You have Insider. You
Insider.
have I mean, Matrix came out, but it didn't.
Yeah,
it didn't
not for Best Picture, but The Sixth Sense was nominated for Best Picture that year. The Cider House Rules.
The Cider House Rules. That was
and then
John Keane.
You already mentioned American Beauty, which ended up winning
right
that year.
That's when Sam Mendes knew how to direct.
He probably did one bad movie. It might be 1917, according to
one bad movie. Yeah,
well, other bad movie has Sam Mendes.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I was gonna say, come on.
But it was a tough. Like 1999 was a tough year to break through from any perspective. That was a really good year, and like I missed that part of the 90s where a lot of creative control was given to the writers and directors. And even though this movie had like 60 million budget, but it was like the most grossing film of Stephen King adaptation up until it. I believe it made like 268 million worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, nowadays I kind of wish that people in show business were like, hey, this is the money, make something good. But then again, I had that conversation with one of our colleagues, like Mortal Kombat had $55 million budget and still fucking end up being a piece of trash. Like, like if you give them money, give them creative control, and don't be lazy. Like, you cannot mess up on so many levels. Like, somebody has to be fucking held accountable at the end. Anyway, what are we doing next week? And if anybody who's watching, listening, we're gonna let you know that we're gonna wrap this season up next week with our last episode for the season. We're gonna take a little break for the summer. We're gonna be back in fall. I hope you guys stay with us. We're gonna do some more research. We're gonna rewatch our podcast. We're gonna kind of maybe have a little bit better structure of what we're approaching. We're going to reflect at what we have done, what worked, what didn't, maybe have a little bit more live shows planned out because that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But that being said, our next movie is going to be something that have not came out as of right now. It's a movie which is going to be released on
this coming Friday, May 14th.
May 14th. It's a movie by one of my favorite directors. Gonna slide a little bit, show you the poster right there. Hello High Water.
Actually, writer. Let's correct you there.
Okay, he wrote Hello
he
High
wrote
Water.
Yes.
He wrote Hello High Water. It's Tyler Sheridan, and he wrote Sicario. He's debuting on HBO this Friday with his new project, Those Who Wish Me Dead. I'm gonna be honest. I don't have high expectations. I'm gonna be realistic, but I feel like it's gonna be good for us to kind of attack something which is on everybody's mind, and without maybe 20 multiple viewings, I'm gonna watch it once, maybe twice, and we will present you what we like, what we dislike. We're gonna go maybe in more details about the director, about the cast. It has a fantastic
magnificent cast. It looks
on
good
paper.
cast, yeah.
On paper, this movie cannot fail,
and it's based on true events, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
I haven't done much research. I just watched the trailer. I like to go into the movies open-minded. So yeah, that's the movie we're going to be digesting next week, hopefully with the happy faces, but you never know.
There you go. So
true
next week it will be our season finale. Like you said, we'll be back in the fall. I'm gonna still be keeping the social media active for you guys that are listening. I might throw in a couple like videos, like top 5 videos to like share just to keep the activity going. But me and the Russian will be back for a season 2 of MovieByte podcast early fall. We're gonna end big. We're gonna start big. So next week, Those Who Wish Me Dead, starring Angelina Jolie, written and directed by Taylor Sheridan. The movie will be premiering on HBO Max
and in
also
theaters,
in theaters
if
at
you
the
guys
same
wanna-
time. So we'll be recording this pretty much after the movie airs. So you'll have an opportunity to watch the movie and be alongside with us when we launch this podcast. So thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be here next week. Thank you for my team, Just Chilling Entertainment, for the editing and uploading all of our videos. Thank you, guys. This will not be where it is if it wasn't for all of you that put in hard work. And thank you for all the audience. Again, 74 subscribers on YouTube. All of our videos are averaging 50 views. We appreciate that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Guys.
Our live video generated 120 plus views as a Facebook right now. YouTube might have had some videos views as well, but it got like down. But the Facebook videos count. Thank you so much. We'll definitely be considering more live videos in the future. And leave us comments, like, dislike. Tell us how we can improve. We're here to take any criticism, bad, positive, negative, good, whatever you want to give us. We'll take it.
Bad criticism, he's gonna take that. I'm
all right, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be in next week. And this is MovieByte Podcast. See you next week.